Hello, this is Salvatore Vinciguerra, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you Highlands Hammock State Park in Sebring, Florida. Please enjoy this video. Highlands Hammock State Park is one of Florida's oldest state parks, located in central Florida. It is a 9,000-acre state park about an hour and a half north of Lake Okeechobee. First, I'll be sharing with you a little bit of the delicate ecosystem that we have here in central Florida and what this hammock provides as a refuge for plant and animal life. I'll also be sharing with you the history of this state park, a brief tour of the Civilian Conservation Corps Museum, and these are the young men who built 8 of Florida's oldest state parks and many of the state parks throughout the United States during the Great Depression and a few years after. And then at the end of this video, I'll be sharing with you where you can stay in your camper, or you can also put up a tent. That's in the camping section, and it's not exactly what you would think for such a beautiful park that looks like this. So the first thing you may come across as you're driving through the hammocks is this. And believe it or not, these are orange trees, or an orange grove that they've reconstructed here. Oranges are ingrained in Florida culture, and native to China, they arrived with the Spanish in the 1500s and continued to be grown by early American settlers after 1821. The expansion of railroad transportation in the late 1800s, the development of frost-proof varieties, the process of pasteurization, canning and frozen concentrate, and an increase in demand led to citrus becoming an essential part of Florida agriculture and a billion-dollar industry. The image of sun-drenched oranges, highway juice stands beckoning tourists with liquid sunshine, and miles upon miles of groves throughout the state firmly established Florida as the Orange State. This is definitely one of those parks that you can see in one day, as this is very straightforward. There's a loop here, and you can either drive your car through this pathway, you can walk up here, or you can also use your bike and just drive around and then stop and leave your bike or your car on the side of the road while you explore the different hiking trails that they have here. One of the great things about this particular state park compared to some of the others is that it's pretty well shaded. However, on these hiking trails, you're going to need to put some good insect repellent on, as during the making of this video, I got attacked by a lot of mosquitoes, especially in the water area or the swampy area that you're going to see in just a few moments of these videos. So make sure that you bring some good insect repellent, and also make sure that you bring some of the first aid ointments that you're going to need afterwards in case you get bitten by any of the insects. This is also Florida, so keep in mind that the temperatures can be quite high, anywhere from 80 degrees to 100 degrees with the index, but maybe not so much as these different parts are shaded. However, you want to make sure that you're hydrated and maybe even bring a snack as you're hiking or biking through these various trails. This is the historic catwalk. It was built in the 1930s and is on the National Register of Historic Places. The historic catwalk takes you through a cypress swamp. This is a watery forest which was born from a slow-moving creek whose waters rise and fall year after year, flooding the shallow banks and then withdrawing. Here, brown waters reflect the tall trees, Spanish moss, and clouds in the sky. So as you're walking through this ancient hammock, it would take you about 20 to 30 minutes to go along this particular trail, and the trail is designed so that it's a loop and it will lead you back from where you started. Listen very carefully to what's in the background as you're walking through this area. Walk very slowly so that you're not disturbing any of the animals that are in there. I would highly suggest that you bring some binoculars, so that way if you want to get a close look at a bird sitting in a tree or a wild animal sitting across from you as you're on the boardwalk, those should be very helpful for you. And so even if you do not see an animal, you may see signs of its presence, such as tracks, scat droppings, or feathers. And if you listen in nature, you can hear a symphony of sounds. At Highlands Hammock State Park, it's possible that you could see a panther, bobcats, black bears. I did see some white-tailed deers on my trail, gray foxes, raccoons, river otters would be possible in this particular area, and gray squirrels, which are all over the place in Florida state parks. I would like to say that in this particular area, there are a lot of birds, and sometimes they're just sitting there and you just have to look for them. That's why you need your binoculars. I did find some egrets that flew in and just sat there and then they flew away, but I wasn't able to capture them on video. This bird that is coming into focus is called a red-shouldered hawk, and it is typical of a bird that you would see as you're walking through this hammock. I also find that the sounds that you hear from other birds in this video are quite unique, as I can't see these birds, but I know that they're somewhere in this hammock surrounding this particular area. More specifically about the red-shouldered hawk is that the Cherokees, the Native Americans who live here in North America, believe that these red-tailed and red-shouldered hawks are symbols of strength and power, and are also messengers of vision. There are several wooden benches along the hiking trail that you can just sit down and observe the nature that's around you. However, I chose to just keep moving because there are a lot of mosquitoes in this area, and that's one way maybe not to get bitten as I'm taking this video. There are other various insects, not just mosquitoes, in this area. You can even see a butterfly or a moth flying around in this area, and it makes you think about the different microclimates that are above and below this boardwalk. As I'm walking on this boardwalk, it isn't the easiest as there's only one handrail And if there was any more water in here, it would be a little scary, as you really don't know what's going to be coming up next. There could be an alligator up here. There could be a bear. You never know, and you have to be very careful, as you're pretty secluded in this area of the hike. This boardwalk eventually drops off and then turns into a regular hiking path. And it is interesting to look around and see the various ferns and vegetation that's mixed in this very unique terrain. This video gives you a greater understanding as to what you may actually come across as you're hiking down this particular trail, as you're going to have the vegetation come in really close to you, and you need to be prepared for that. One of my favorite parts about visiting any national or state park is to get to see the wildlife, like the bird that you just saw in the hammock, or these deer on the side of the road. And if you look very carefully on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a baby deer hiding in that bush. Usually the wildlife at these parks comes out in the late afternoon, right before dusk, and then in the early hours of the morning at dawn. And make sure that if you are driving in these areas at those times, that you are very careful and you're going very slow, as these animals sometimes get injured when people drive too fast and are not paying attention. Another item that you don't want to miss on these hiking trails is this 1,000-year-old oak tree, and it is quite interesting to walk upon it and wonder, is it still alive or maybe not? Even so, it's still pretty cool to walk around it and see the other oak trees that are in this area. If you're in the northern part of the state of Florida near Orlando, a great state park that has the second oldest oak tree is the Lake Griffin State Park. And I really highly suggest that you go and stop by and see that particular tree, because it is more magnificent than what you're seeing here, even though this is 1,000 years old. Check out my video on the Lake Griffin State Park. I'll put the link in the description box below. Definitely the texture of the trunk of this tree is quite interesting to observe. Make sure that you also take a good look above in the canopies to see what's growing on the trees. You can sometimes see some ferns growing on these trees or some moss. Here's some history on the Highlands Hammock State Park. It first opened in 1931 and is one of the earliest examples of grassroots public support for environmental preservation. Local citizens, with the financial assistance of Margaret Shippen Roebling family, acquired the property and constructed trails and basic facilities in 1930. In 1934, the Civilian Conservation Corps camp began working on a botanical garden project on land adjacent to the Highlands Hammock Park. When Florida State Park System was established in 1935, Highlands Hammock became one of the first parks. In 1941, the park and gardens merged as the Civilian Conservation Camp closed due to impending war. During those years, the Civilian Conservation Corps had planted thousands of plants, constructed roadways, dams, bridges, and buildings. Although the gardens never became a reality, the park's natural beauty still endures. Now I'm bringing you back to the front of the park, and this is maybe where they have festivals throughout the year. They have picnic tables and pavilions where you can have birthday parties. This is also the starting point for the Wild Orange Grove Trail, and if you didn't bring your bike, you can also rent them right here. However, keep in mind that not all of the trails are accessible by bike. If you don't want to bike or hike to the Highlands Hammock State Park, you can also take this tram. It's about a 1-hour tour to learn about the park history, natural communities, while traveling through some of the most remote areas of Highlands Hammock State Park. You get to visit the South Canal and take photos of alligators and other wildlife. Inside of this building, where you rent your bikes and get other supplies for camping, check out this giant tortoise shell that was excavated when they were building the park. This is the Civilian Conservation Corps Museum at the Highlands Hammock State Park, and it's absolutely free to go inside of this museum. The artifacts are really cool, especially if you're into camping, learning not only about the history of Florida state parks, but about the history of the United States, because President Roosevelt during the Great Depression was one of those people that put this type of service into place. The museum volunteer on the day that I visited was very friendly, and there was nobody inside of it, but she gave me a great tour of the museum, and she also told me a lot about the history of the Civilian Conservation Corps. Don't be afraid to ask these volunteers questions, as it really is a very intriguing museum to visit. This is a great museum for people of all ages, including children, as they have a little scavenger hunt which you can go around and be a history detective inside of the museum. As I stated earlier in the video, the Civilian Conservation Corps was a voluntary government work relief program that ran from 1933 to 1942 in the United States for unemployed, unmarried men ages 18 through 25 and eventually expanded to ages 17 through 28. The Civilian Conservation Corps was a major part of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal that supplied manual labor jobs related to the conservation and development of natural resources in rural lands owned by federal, state, and local governments. The Civilian Conservation Corps was designed to supply jobs for young men and to relieve families who had difficulty finding jobs during the Great Depression in the United States. The largest enrollment at any one time was 300,000. Through the course of its 9 years in operation, 3 million young men took part in the Civilian Conservation Corps, which provided them with shelter, clothing, and food, together with a wage of only $30, equivalent to $1,000 in 2021, per month, $25 of which had to be sent home to their families. Next, we're going to listen to a sample of a fireside chat that Franklin D. Roosevelt used during the Great Depression to connect to the American people.
Unemployed and employed alike are their human problems. Their human problems of food and clothing and home and education and health and old age. You and I agree that security is our greatest need. If government tries to put idle money and idle men to work, to increase our public wealth, and to build up the health and strength of the people, to help our system of private enterprise to function again.
These were some of the very intimate speeches that the president gave to the American people to make them feel comfortable during a very scary time during the Great Depression. The American public made the Civilian Conservation Corps the most popular of all the New Deal programs. Sources written at the time claimed an individual's enrollment in the Civilian Conservation Corps led to improved physical condition, heightened morale, and increased employability. The Civilian Conservation Corps also led to a greater public awareness and appreciation of the outdoors and the nation's national resources, and the continued need for a carefully planned, comprehensive national program for the protection and development of natural resources. The Civilian Conservation Corps operated separate programs for veterans and Native Americans. Approximately 15,000 Native Americans took part in the program, helping them weather the Great Depression. By 1942, with World War II raging and the draft in effect, the need for work relief program declined, and Congress voted to close the program. Now let's talk about the campsites at the Highlands Hammock State Park. They have 159 campsites, mostly with water and electric. There is a dump station, and some campsites are for the wilderness, youth, and equestrian use. There are horse trails and playgrounds inside of this area. I do want to just warn people that this is not the kind of experience that I was intending to have at Highland Hammocks, as it's such a beautiful park itself, but the campsites are a little bit of a downer. And here's the reason why. Everything is so close together, as you can see in these pictures of my campsite, which is only a few feet. It's like a parking lot, and this is not what a normal Florida state park looks like, especially the good ones, where you're very secluded in your campsite and you don't get to walk out and see your neighbors right in front of your campsite as soon as you open your door. Despite the negatives of the camping site area, my neighbors were very friendly, and so are the other people in the campground, and that is why I do go camping, as some of these people at these camping areas are some of the most friendliest people that I know of.
This is Salvatore Vinciguerra. Thank you for watching this video on Highlands Hammock State Park in Sebring, Florida. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to this channel, and have a great day. Thank you.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow the lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? Flashing red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive. Nothing in sight, forever in flight. Follow those lines, we'll make it this time. Blurry street lights, work as a guide to memories that we're making tonight. Oh yeah, we'll make it tonight. Yeah, I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side, PCH country limit. I don't need a guide, follow lights, take me where I wanna visit. Are you alive? Or just breathing? I'm in a race that everybody's chasing fast. They wanna be that someone on the screen at last. They ain't looking inside for their needs in life. They wanna be liked by everybody in sight. But trust me, being free ain't spotlights. No, it's long nights and it's long fights with yourself all the time to get your mind right. But if you put in the work, you can find the light, alright. I'll do anything that I feel like I wanna do. I'm living life like I got nothing left to prove. No end in sight, just always staying on the move. I'll go all night if that's just what I gotta do. Life's too short to care about what you can't afford. Memories are in what you explore, so just don't be ignored. Go ask for more, go ask for more. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die